All right, everyone. Frau Merkel wants to introduce more draconian anti-freedom legislation into Germany, which shouldn't actually be a surprise to anybody. Remember that in Germany uniquely, for some reason, this didn't provoke any real reaction other than from me and a handful of YouTube commentators, I don't think any of which were German. But they've already been spying on political adversaries within Germany. AfD has been actively had surveillance conducted on it, on its officials by the German government, which is funny because the German government's not really representing AfD. AfD has little representation within the government there. Now, Merkel, if you're guilty of wrongthink, like you say inappropriate political things, like if you hate Angela Merkel, I'm assuming is one of the reasons, the Gestapo wants your password so that they can go into your DMs on Twitter and everything, and they can make sure, whether you're loyal. Now, let's get the one thing straight. The obvious reason for this is that they want to be able to go through the dirty laundry of anyone who is a public proponent of anything the government doesn't like, so they can try to throw them in jail under their draconian anti-speech legislation. And when they say hate speech legislation, no, it's not tackling extremism, it's not saving the children, it's not the Patriot Act. That's all newspeak fucking 1984 propagandistic fucking authoritarian ass bullshit. It's totalitarianism under a newspeak family-friendly label. No, what you're actually engaged in is an attempt to censor, to control, and to suppress, and abuse the population and try to prevent them from thinking for themselves. There was a time when people who were liberal, by the way, used to stand against such things. It's funny, though. This time, Frau Merkel has so little support for it. Number one, it's not clear that this will actually take hold. Thankfully, it doesn't look likely. Number two, and I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation of this because, I'm not German. There's a party there that's on a leftist movement called Die Link or Die Linke or something like that. I'm going to call it Die Link and just assume that its founder was Ganondorf. You get the reference, I hope so. I'm just going to make that assumption. I think it's a Hyrule reference. But they're against it too. Apparently they're pissed off about the idea, and I can understand. It's like when you look at tech censorship and you see, like, they did a study on YouTube's algorithmic manipulation of recommended videos, and they were studying like Jimmy Dore or Dore, or, again, pronunciation not my strong suit on some of these things. And people were being directed to Fox News by watching his left-wing content, and this is considered terrible by actual progressives. It's considered great by the so-called left, by the CNN and MSNBC, by the champagne socialists and people like that. This is what we see time and time again. People who are genuinely on the left tend not to support such things like that. And people on the right, often they'll look at it, they'll see neoliberals like Merkel are benefiting, and they think that it's like a far-left conspiracy, and it's actually, no, it's an authoritarian takeover. Merkel loves her corporate buddies. She has no problem with capitalistic interests so long as they're corporatized. So long as it's a bastardized, corrupt capitalism, Merkel's all for it. But if it was somebody who just wants to be left alone to tend their own crops, she'd have a problem with that. Merkel is the most corrupt leader in the world right now. Kim Jong-un is more sane than she is. Probably has higher real support, too. She's just crazy, and she's a traitor to her own people. The fact that they tolerate her still is... I don't understand why they fucking elected her in the first place. Certainly why they re-elected her. The fact that they tolerate this sort of stuff, it may not pass through. It may get stopped by AfD and the left and all these groups together. The fact that it's even considered tolerable for this to be made a suggestion. Like in the United States, if the government were to say, well, we think that if people have unpopular political views, like, YouTube labels them a fanatic, BuzzFeed claims that they're far right, we want to gain access to their passwords so that we can look through, the messages they're sending. If you were to attempt to make that suggestion, even like the ACLU wouldn't defend you at that point. But in Germany, it doesn't seem to provoke any major reaction. It's actually mysterious to me how you can live in a society where, the people there are classically educated. Germany's not a dumb state. The people there tend to be intelligent, and yet they tolerate this level of extreme totalitarian abuse. It's like, as long as you claim that it's to fight the Nazis, you can do whatever you want. You can actually become a severe totalitarian, act in a fascistic manner, as long as you claim it's to fight the fascists. It's sort of like if Antifa was running a country, I guess, although Antifa certainly wouldn't have a first world economy at that point. Other than that, it's like Antifa, I guess, is running Germany now. Merkel acts a lot like them. They also sell out and cuck to corporations. Soros is a major donor of theirs, I believe. So it makes sense, I guess, on the surface. But yeah, so Merkel wants more, they're not doing enough to fight extremism. No, we don't mean bomb throwers. We don't mean rape gangs or anything like that. No, we mean people who posted a Twitter status. Somebody said something wrong on YouTube. It's a very big societal issue. We must be allowed to spy on them directly. So before it was we want to spy on the political leaders, like the AfD and similar movements. Now it's we want to spy on everyone. At what point does it just become Gestapo-esque? At what point are people going to wake up and realize that the so-called anti-fascists are the ones that are actually becoming abusive? It's difficult because linguistic propaganda is a thing. It's just like the Patriot Act. Well, you're unpatriotic if you oppose us spying on your library records. Almost successfully implemented in its entirety in the Bush administration here because people were afraid and they were taken in by language labels, really. That's about all. Peace out.